Hi there, Ken Walker here with thephotoshopninja.com, and today we're going to start a little project here, a retouching project. How cool is this? We're going to take this picture, and through a series of videos, you're going to actually watch my process for retouching, and we're going to turn this shot into something that actually, you can tell this is just a snapshot, right? I'm going to turn this into what looks like a studio shot, and you're going to see every single step of the way. By the way, I have no idea who this person is. I just grabbed this picture off the internet. So my apologies if I offend anyone here, but we're going to go ahead and do what we can do to this and hope you learned something. Today, we're going to start with the eyes because you know what? Let me grab the move tool here so I don't mess anything up. And I'm going to zoom in. The eyes, my friend, they make or break a photo. Really, they do. These are one of the areas that I pay a lot of attention to. For photographers, they're always told, no matter what, make sure the eyes are in focus, because that's what draws people's attention. So make sure the eyes are in focus, and in this case, we're going to make sure the eyes just have this little pop, where they're not literally popping out, but where they look really, really cool and draw a lot of attention to them. What we are going to be doing, I'll just tell you, some of the things we're going to be doing: enhancing the eyes, removing or at least lessening some wrinkles, balancing out the skin, a little teeth whitening maybe, and we're going to do something with this background. Literally, again, this is a snapshot, but wait till you see what we turn it into. So let's get started with the eyes. And before we actually do much work on the eyes, some of the things that we're going to be using: clone brush, of course the regular brush, the eraser, the dodge tool, the burn tool, and all of these tools are going to need some settings, some brush settings, so that we can work smoothly. And let me just tell you how you get to that. Let's go to the brush tool here. And when you click the drop down, you can see all the different kinds of brushes, right? You can click over here and you can load a whole bunch of different kinds of brushes as well. Well, all I'm going to do is go to the basic brushes and go ahead and replace my existing brushes there, and you can see these. Now, in addition to this, if I click on this little icon here, this thing pops up that gives me some special settings, and this is what I want you to do. This is what you have right now by default, right? Let's go down here. We want something that's going to be pretty soft, and we adjust that right here where it says hardness. See that? We slide it over to the right. It's really defined edge. Slide it to the left and it gets much softer. I'm going to probably work with something a little bit bigger, but we can adjust that later. We're going to go over here to Shape Dynamics. You want to make sure that everything on Shape Dynamics is turned off. Now we're going to go over here to Transfer. This, in older versions of Photoshop, this is probably called like Other Dynamics or something like that. Here, I got to give you a little bit of a lecture, okay, before we talk about the settings. I am using a Wacom tablet to do my editing. Now, I'm not saying that you have to use a Wacom tablet, but man, you better use some kind of tablet, because it's going to make your life a whole lot easier. Clicking in with the mouse around that is just a big old pain. And I do switch around a little bit, but my favorite weapon of choice is the Wacom tablet. For control, we want to set this to pen pressure for the opacity jitter, and then pen pressure for the flow jitter. Now look what that does right here. This is a sample of our brush. If we're pressing lightly, we're getting very low throughput from that brush. If we're pressing hard, we're getting the thickest and most solid. That way you have a whole lot of control with what it is that you're doing. Okay? And that type of setting, you're going to want that for Like as a matter of fact, while we're in here, let's lock these so that they can't be changed. And like my clone stamp tool, I want the same thing here. So shape dynamics, I'm going to set all that off. Transfer, pen pressure, okay, for flow and opacity. Not only for the clone tool, but my eraser. Shape dynamics, make sure this is all off. Transfer. Well, actually first, let's get over here and make it soft. There we go. Transfer, pen pressure, and I should probably lock these, and I should have locked the other ones before, but now we're also going to be using the dodge tool and the burn tool. Those have the same settings here. Okay, so make sure we're soft, and we are. Shape dynamics, everything's off. Cool, let's lock it while we're there. Transfer. In this case, we only get the exposure, so we're good with that. Let's lock that. And the burn tool. Pen pressure, excellent. Shape dynamics, everything is off, and it's already soft, so we're good. All right, so that's it. Our tools are ready. What we want to do is try to make sure that as much as possible we're remaining it's called non-destructive, where we can do things that are not permanent and we can make changes later and go back to a different version or whatever. Okay? In order to do that, we want to duplicate layers and we want to work on new layers, that kind of thing. So the first thing I'm going to do is with my background selected, I'm going to do Control J. That is going to give me a copy. Okay? I will then double click this and we're going to call it original. From this point on, I'm not going to touch that original. As a matter of fact, I'll just turn it off, and we're going to work on now copies from this point forward. So first thing, let's go ahead and grab our clone tool. With my scroll wheel here, I'm zooming in pretty tight. What I want to do is remove any of the catch lights that are in here already, because let's face it, this right now, the catch lights, the reflections that we're getting are they're just from, you know, the background from whatever's being taken, and this is an outside photo. It looks like I can kind of see scenery. I think these are trees and stuff here. We want to remove all that. So holding the Alt key, this is an option for the Mac. I'm going to sample an area here, and I'm just going to make little subtle changes, and you're going to see me sampling frequently. Okay, whenever you see that little symbol right there, that's me sampling. And I want to sample, clone, sample, clone. And I'm just totally getting rid of reflections. And you can see the control that I have here. It's not just like, boom, I paint and everything's gone. This is going to be my hardest area here. And I want to sample from different areas because I don't want it to look like there is some kind of weird pattern going on, right? I don't want to lose texture either, though. Now, to take care of that pupil, we're just going to make sure that we're black, and let's use our brush here, and we'll paint right into it. How about that? Simple little correction there. So Control minus zooms us out, and I know it looks kind of weird now, right? Don't worry about it. We're going to take care of that. Let's go back over here on this side now, and we're going to do the same thing. Clone stamp tool. This eye seems to have even more reflection, so it's going to be a little bit of work. This is a good sample. By the way, a lot of times when people try to show you Photoshop stuff, they have an image that they've done like 1 billion times. And I don't like to do that. I have never actually worked on this image in my life. I am showing you the technique that I actually use, and we're doing it live. And the reason that I do that is because what I have found is if you're working with an image that you always work with and you're trying to demonstrate something, you'll always do exactly the same thing, and you won't be able to deal with like new weird things that come up, and people won't see how you handle that kind of stuff. Whereas with this, it's for real. This is how I'm going to do it because I've never worked on this image before. Hitting the B key switches me over to my brush, and you'll notice that my brush is around the size of the pupil. So I'm just going to paint and kind of swirl it around a little bit. And there we go at that phase. What we've accomplished now is we've got those pre-existing catch lights out, because what we're wanting to recreate is a studio type shot. And with a studio shot, we're not going to have reflections of trees and all kinds of weird stuff in the eyes, right? So on this layer, I'm going to actually double click that layer title, and I'm going to call this Remove Catch Lights. Then I'm going to hit Control J, and that duplicates that layer. This layer we're going to call Eye Color, because this is where we're going to, guess what? Color the eye. Yes, you got that right. Fantastic. All right. I like to advocate naming layers because I hate when I see files. I open up somebody else's files and you have no idea what the layers are. Here we're going to grab, not that tool, sorry. Here we're going to grab the Dodge tool. Let's move right in on the eye here. And we're going to set the range to midtones. For exposure, we want to bring this down like 10%, somewhere around there. Can't even type it in there exactly. And you want to make sure Protect Tones is on. What we're going to do is just kind of lighten these eyes up. Now, not a whole lot with lighter colored eyes. As a matter of fact, that's probably as far as I'm going to go. Because in doing this, you're going to do a little bit of desaturation, which we'll fix later. But we want to create more of a contrast between the iris and the whites of the eyes. And one of the steps in doing that is lightening them up a little bit. With brown eyes, you'll probably do this more, but just so you can see, keep an eye on the eye. That's a pun. Keep an eye on the eye right there, and this is before and after. Okay, all we've done is lightened it up just a touch. With lighter colored eyes, sometimes you don't even have to do it at all. Let's go ahead and take that now. This is enough, right? Just very subtle. Let's take that, duplicate it. A lot of times what you'll find is with any retouching, no one thing that you do should go like, wow. It should be everything compiled makes a big difference. Otherwise, things are going to look weird. This one, we're going to call this iris ring. And what we're going to do is further accentuate that difference by now grabbing the burn tool. And here we want to, I'm hitting my left square bracket to make that lighter, or to make the brush smaller, sorry. And again, midtones, we want to set this to about 10%, and Protect Tones as well there. And all we're going to do is go around here and darken that edge. Try not to bleed into the whites of the eyes there. We're just trying to darken the outer edge. We're accentuating. We want to make it to where the eye looks round, right? Not so much a flat image. We want it to be rounded. Okay, now here, let's go back. That's before, and that's after. Okay, just accentuating the eyes a little bit. Now, at this point, we have somewhat desaturated the eyes a little bit. Okay, here is our original, and here's what we've gotten so far. Looks a little alien, right? Don't worry. We're just a few steps away from making this look really cool. Let's add a new layer. So I'm going to click the Create New Layer icon. I'm going to change this mode to color. What we want to do, let's zoom in on an eye here. And with my brush tool, I'm going to hold the Alt key down. This is the Option key on the Mac. And I'm going to select a light color from the iris. Okay, when I do that, that sets that as my color over here. Now I'm going to take that color and I'm going to paint it in. Again, I've got a lot of control with my brush as far as how intense I make this. Painting some color back into the eye. And then what we're going to do, let's back out. We want to see it pretty clearly, but don't get too super close to it. And now what we can do is take this drop down here for the opacity. Let's bring it all the way down. This is no coloring right here. And then we're going to slowly bring it up and put it where we think it's going to look right, okay? We don't want it to look weird. We want it to add just a hint of color. So doing a lot of before and after. Okay, turn it off, turn it on. That's pretty good right there. Not super duper strong. Again, let's take a look at without and with. Okay, so not super strong, but where it is, you know, there is some color being added back into the eye. Now, the thing about these eyes that looks a bit strange is there's no catch light whatsoever. So let me name this eye color before we continue. And let's create another new layer. And I will call this Catch Light 1. With this, I'll hit the X key and switch to white as my foreground. I've already got my brush. I'm going to zoom in. And what you want with this is you're going to be adding two catch lights, okay? One that's bigger and more faded, and one that's brighter and smaller. You want to put it in one of two positions. You kind of have to zoom out to get your source. This is a fairly straight on shot. There's no real strong definition of where the light is coming from, so it's kind of up to you. I'm going to go with the right side though. So what you're going to do is either at the 10 o'clock position or at the 2 o'clock position. Okay, and with white right here, we're just going to go like that. Now we're going to take this and we're going to drop the opacity down to where you can see it, but it's not really strong and apparent. It's not overpowering. Let's do the same for the other eye. Be careful to put them in the same place. So again, right there. And if we look at the two of those, we should get something about like that. Now let's create a new layer. We're going to call this Catch Light 2. Now this catch light is going to be smaller, so we're going to lower our brush size. And it's going to be more towards the pupil. Okay? Here we're putting this on the edge. Here we want to put it kind of on the inside of the pupil, right like that. So same thing here on the inside of the pupil. There we go. And with these, we may also want to lower the opacity a bit, but we want to make sure that this one is brighter than the initial catch light. I'm going to grab my move tool here, kind of bump that in right about there. It's just going to give the eye a little bit more twinkle. You can already tell that just adding that, I mean, it's a natural thing, right? So just adding that in there gives the eye a more realistic look. Up next, let's add a new layer. And we're going to call this Moon 1. Why in the world would we call it Moon 1? Because it's going to be the shape of a moon. What we want to do, brush tool, right bracket here to make it bigger, and you want to make this about that much, in relation to the pupil and the outside edge of the iris there, about that wide, okay? So a little bit of room on each side between the pupil and the darkness of the iris. What we're going to do is hold the Alt key, this is the Option key on the Mac, find a light color, and click and sample that. Then click your swatch there, and whatever color was picked, go straight up almost to white. Hit OK. And we are simply going to paint like so. And you're like, wow, that looks kind of nasty. Well, relax, we're not going to leave it. Let's grab our eraser. And here we're going to get a big honking huge eraser. And way out here, we're going to start erasing. And we're just going to do just like that. Maybe grab the ends a little bit. Lower the size of the eraser and clean up this stuff right here. And this is going to totally depend on what, exactly what your eye looks like, because honestly, sometimes, more of the iris is going to be visible. So there's a lot of variation here for what can happen. Same thing here, brush tool, paint a nice sweeping moon. And you can see what I'm doing is I'm going with the shape of the iris even though it bleeds over into the rest of the eye. But that is because that's how you want to get the shape to be realistic. And then lower that down again. Get rid of the bleed onto the eyelid. Again, we're going to take the opacity for this all the way down, and we're going to slowly bring it up until we start to see some definition there. And I'm just going to go ahead and probably go with that right there. Here's without and with. And let's do another new layer. And this one we're going to call Moon 2. And for Moon 2, we're going to go with, let's grab the brush, even lighter. This one's going to be almost totally white. And let's zoom in here. And we're going to make sure that we're smaller, so left bracket. And we're going to sweep right in the middle of that, like so. Grab the eraser. Same thing, kind of a big eraser. And notice how I'm pushing out here on the edge. I'm not pushing right on top of it, right? I'm pushing out here, clicking, or pushing your pen down. And just kind of bringing it towards the eye. Over here, same thing, brush tool. Right inside that first moon. eraser, somewhat large, pushing way out here. You can see how it starts to take it away. Shrink it down to work with removing the eyelid. And then we turn that off and see what we get. Okay, so again there, too intense, right? So we're going to take the opacity and bring it down to 0 first. And then once we start to see it, something like that right there. Okay, so here's without and with the moon. And again, if it's ever too intense, just lower the opacity. Now, while I'm here, because she just got a little bit of work on the whitening of the eyes, while I am here, I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer. Whiten. This is really, really, really easy. With the brush tool, fairly small, or you can actually do this with the clone tool. It really doesn't matter, but I'm going to Alt-click right here, sample that color, and we're just going to paint these eye veins out. And the thing is, you don't want to totally get rid of everything. I don't even think she has anything over here worth dealing with. But we're going to paint that out, and then we're going to lower the opacity just to kind of lessen it, right? You don't want people having like plastic eyes. This is without, and this is with. I might even, let's go in and resample. It's a little bit whiter over here. There we go. That looks fairly good. Always zoom out too, because a lot of times things look different up close. See, look at that. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay, so here's what we've done today. Let's, this is the original, well, that's the original. That is the original image. And here is what we have now turned it into. So again, eyes, very, very important. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you learned something. And don't forget to check out thephotoshopninja.com for more Photoshop tutorials. And I am going to continue this with another video on eyelashes and eyebrows. Hopefully I'll see you there.